Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, the place where every story takes you on an emotional journey of hope, resilience, and change. Today's story unfolds in an idyllic, upscale neighborhood where a family's dream of a fresh start turns into a battle against prejudice and harassment. Meet the Walkers, a family full of strength and grace who face relentless hostility from a troublesome neighbor. What happens when they stand their ground and uncover secrets that shake the community? Stick with us as we dive into a tale of courage, justice, and the power of unity to transform even the most hostile environments. If you enjoy stories that challenge perceptions and leave you inspired, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and let us know where you're tuning in from. The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the pristine cul-de-sac, where neatly trimmed lawns and stately colonial-style homes painted a picturesque scene. The Walkers' moving truck rumbled into the driveway of their new home, a modern two-story house with expansive windows and a charming front porch. Marcus Walker, a tall man with a calm demeanor and sharp eyes, stepped out of the truck, his smile reflecting a mix of pride and exhaustion. "Home sweet home," Marcus said, his baritone voice carrying warmth as he looked at his wife, Camille, and their teenage daughter, Jasmine. Camille, dressed in casual jeans and a flowing blouse, surveyed the house with an approving nod. "We've worked so hard for this," she said softly. "It's perfect." Jasmine, a slender 16-year-old with a love for photography, hopped out of the car, already framing the house with her camera. "Can't wait to decorate my room," she said, beaming. As the movers began unloading furniture, Marcus and Camille started directing them, while Jasmine wandered to the sidewalk, snapping pictures of the neighborhood. Across the street, curtains shifted in one window after another, revealing curious eyes. But it was the woman next door who stood out. Karen Miller, dressed in pastel slacks and a cardigan, stood on her perfectly manicured lawn, her arms crossed tightly. Her icy blue eyes locked on the Walkers like a hawk sizing up prey. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just stood there, scrutinizing every box unloaded from the truck. "Mom, check out the lady next door," Jasmine muttered, tilting her head toward Karen. Camille glanced over and offered a polite wave, but Karen didn't respond. Instead, she turned abruptly and marched into her house, letting the screen door slam behind her. "First impressions, I guess," Camille said with a shrug, trying to brush off the cold reception. The Walkers spent the rest of the day unpacking, arranging furniture, and celebrating with pizza on the porch. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus caught a glimpse of Karen peering through her blinds, her phone pressed to her ear. The next morning, Marcus was sipping his coffee on the porch when a black SUV pulled into the cul-de-sac. A man in a crisp suit stepped out, clipboard in hand, and headed straight for the Walkers' house. "Good morning," the man said, his tone neutral but professional. "I'm from the Homeowners Association. We received a complaint about your property." "Already?" Marcus asked, raising an eyebrow. The man glanced at his clipboard. "A neighbor reported that your lawn is unkempt and not in compliance with HOA standards." Marcus gestured toward the freshly mowed grass, the immaculate flower beds Camille had worked on, and the clean walkway. "Unkempt? Are we looking at the same lawn?" The HOA representative hesitated, then nodded awkwardly. "It does seem to be in excellent condition. I'll mark this as resolved." As the man walked back to his SUV, Marcus exchanged a knowing look with Camille, who had overheard the conversation from the doorway. "Karen," she said simply, shaking her head. The days turned into weeks, and Karen's behavior became more pronounced. She would stand on her porch, glaring at the Walkers whenever they were outside. The gossip mill churned in full force, with neighbors giving the Walkers cold shoulders during brief encounters at the mailbox or while walking their dogs. Jasmine overheard whispers at the local park, rumors that her family didn't belong in the neighborhood, that they were troublemakers. "Why do people care so much?" Jasmine asked one evening, frustration evident in her voice as she vented to her parents. "Because people like Karen are afraid of change," Marcus replied, "but we're not going to let her push us out. We've dealt with worse." Camille nodded. "We stay calm, document everything, and let her dig her own grave." True to their word, the Walkers began keeping a log of Karen's behavior. Every time she trespassed to take pictures of their property or made snide remarks about them within earshot, Marcus jotted it down. Jasmine even managed to capture a video of Karen loudly complaining to another neighbor about the walkers bringing down the neighborhood. But the walkers didn't stop living their lives. They hosted a small, quiet barbecue with close friends, smiling as Karen peeked through her blinds the entire time. They maintained their lawn meticulously, Camille adding a colorful array of flowers that only highlighted how neglected Karen's own garden was in comparison. One evening, as Marcus relaxed in the living room, he noticed a letter slipped under their door. It was an anonymous note, dripping with thinly veiled hostility. "You don't belong here. Go back where you came from." Marcus clenched the note tightly, but his face remained composed. He showed it to Camille, who placed a comforting hand on his arm. "We'll deal with this," she said firmly. Karen's campaign against the walkers reached new heights. She began filing complaint after complaint with the HOA, accusing Marcus of hosting loud parties, claiming Camille parked improperly, and even alleging that Jasmine's dog was aggressive. The complaints were absurd, and most were dismissed after a cursory investigation, but the constant scrutiny began to wear on the family. "Does she not have anything better to do?" Camille fumed one evening after receiving yet another notice from the HOA about supposed violations. "She's trying to intimidate us," Marcus said, "but intimidation only works if we let it." The most egregious incident occurred on a crisp autumn afternoon. Jasmine had taken their golden retriever Bailey for a walk around the neighborhood. She was enjoying the scenery, her camera slung around her neck, when a police car pulled up alongside her. "Excuse me, miss, can I talk to you for a second?" the officer said, stepping out of the car. Jasmine froze, clutching Bailey's leash tightly. "Is something wrong?" "We got a call about suspicious activity," the officer explained. "A young girl matching your description was seen loitering around homes." "I live here," Jasmine said, her voice trembling. She gestured toward her house down the street. The officer looked skeptical, but glanced at her camera and the dog. "Do you have ID?" Jasmine fumbled for her phone, calling Marcus. Within minutes, Marcus arrived, his expression calm, but his eyes blazing with restrained anger. "She's my daughter," Marcus told the officer firmly. "Walking her dog, on her street, is that a crime?" The officer, sensing he'd been misled, apologized awkwardly and drove off. But the damage was done. Jasmine was shaken, and Marcus knew exactly who had made the call. That night, Marcus stayed up late, reviewing the recordings and notes they'd compiled. Camille sat beside him, her expression a mix of exhaustion and determination. "This can't go on," Camille said. "It's time to fight back." Marcus nodded. "We need to be strategic. Karen's playing dirty, but she's not as clever as she thinks." As Marcus delved deeper into Karen's history, he unearthed a trove of information that painted a very different picture of their self-righteous neighbor. For years, Karen had been operating an illegal Airbnb from her home, renting out rooms without proper approval from the HOA or city zoning board. Complaints about noise and parking violations from her guests had been quietly dismissed by the HOA, likely due to Karen's influence. "She's breaking more rules than anyone else in this neighborhood," Marcus said, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "That's not all," Camille added, holding up a spreadsheet she'd found online. "She hasn't been paying her HOA dues on time either. She's been getting away with it for years." The pieces were falling into place. Marcus and Camille knew it was time to bring Karen's actions to light, but they needed the perfect moment to do so. The walkers continued documenting Karen's harassment while preparing their case. They attended the next HOA meeting with a quiet confidence, ready to turn the tables on their troublesome neighbor. Little did Karen know her reign of terror was about to come to an abrupt and humiliating end. The evening of the HOA meeting arrived, held in a modest community center at the edge of the neighborhood. Rows of folding chairs filled with neighbors created a tense atmosphere, with many residents whispering among themselves. At the front of the room, the HOA board members sat behind a long table, their faces a mix of curiosity and weariness. Karen, dressed in a navy pantsuit, sat confidently near the front, clutching a neatly typed list of alleged violations committed by the walkers. Her icy demeanor radiated smugness as she whispered to a neighbor, her piercing gaze occasionally darting toward Marcus and Camille. The walkers entered quietly, Marcus dressed in a crisp button-up shirt, and Camille exuding poise in a professional blazer. Jasmine trailed behind them, carrying a laptop and a folder of documents. When the meeting was called to order, Karen wasted no time. "Thank you for allowing me to speak," she began, rising from her seat and addressing the room with theatrical indignation. "I've come to address the ongoing disruptions caused by the Walker family. Since their arrival, we've had numerous complaints: loud parties, improper parking, an aggressive dog, and general disregard for our community's standards." She placed her list on the table in front of the board, her voice dripping with false concern. "I've documented each infraction in detail and submitted photographic evidence." A murmur rippled through the room. Karen looked pleased with herself, taking her seat with a satisfied smirk. The HOA president, a gray-haired man with glasses, adjusted his microphone. "Thank you, Ms. Miller. We'll review your concerns. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Walker, would you like to respond?" Marcus rose slowly, his calm, commanding presence immediately quieting the room. He carried a flash drive in one hand and gestured to Jasmine, who connected the laptop to the projector. "Good evening, everyone," Marcus began, his voice steady. "We moved into this neighborhood to create a safe and peaceful home for our family. However, since day one, we've been subjected to harassment, baseless accusations, and racial hostility, much of it from Ms. Miller." Karen's expression soured, but she stayed silent. Marcus gestured to the screen, where a video began to play. In the footage, Karen could be seen trespassing onto the Walkers' property, snapping photos of their lawn while muttering under her breath. Another clip showed her shouting at Jasmine, calling her suspicious for walking her dog. Gasps erupted from the audience as the evidence unfolded. Camille stood next, holding up a stack of papers. "We've also documented Ms. Miller's ongoing violations of HOA regulations, which we believe have been overlooked." She passed the papers to the board members, detailing Karen's illegal Airbnb operation. Photos of guests arriving with suitcases in Karen's home, listed on a rental website, flashed on the screen. "But that's not all," Camille continued. "Ms. Miller has also made unapproved renovations to her property and failed to pay her HOA dues on time for several years." A low murmur of shock spread through the room. Even some of Karen's staunchest allies appeared uneasy. One of the board members, a woman with a clipboard, cleared her throat. "Ms. Miller, is this true?" Karen stood abruptly, her face flushed. "This is outrageous. They're just trying to shift the blame to me. None of this proves they're following the rules." The HOA president raised a hand to silence her. "Ms. Miller, the evidence provided is clear and compelling. The Walkers' property is well maintained, and the complaints you've filed appear baseless. Meanwhile, your violations are serious and well documented." Karen sat down heavily, glaring at the Walkers. The president continued, addressing the room. "The board will issue Ms. Miller a formal citation for her infractions, including operating an unauthorized rental property and failure to pay dues. Additional fines will be imposed." Karen's face twisted in outrage, but she said nothing. Marcus and Camille exchanged a quiet, triumphant glance as the meeting adjourned. The fallout from the HOA meeting was swift and severe. Karen, saddled with hefty fines and legal fees, struggled to keep her head above water. Her once pristine lawn grew overgrown, and the once frequent guests of her illegal Airbnb disappeared. Within weeks, a "for sale" sign appeared in her front yard. Meanwhile, the Walkers found themselves receiving apologies from neighbors who had previously kept their distance. An older woman named Barbara, who had lived on the street for decades, stopped by one evening with a plate of cookies. "I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner," Barbara said, her tone sincere. "Karen had us all intimidated, but I can see now that we should have welcomed you properly." Marcus accepted the cookies with a gracious smile. "Thank you, Barbara. It means a lot to hear that." Other neighbors followed suit, stopping by to introduce themselves, share kind words, and even invite the Walkers to community events. One Saturday morning, as Marcus was mowing the lawn, he noticed a young couple standing in front of Karen's house, examining the "for sale" sign. They looked to be in their early 30s, holding hands and chatting animatedly. With them were two children, a boy and a girl, playing tag on the sidewalk. "Thinking about moving in?" Marcus called out, waving. The man smiled. "We are. My wife and I fell in love with the neighborhood, and the kids would love the backyard here. Marcus walked over, introducing himself. I'm Marcus Walker. Welcome to the neighborhood, if you decide to join us. Thanks, the man said, shaking his hand. I'm David, and this is my wife, Priya. Marcus offered a few tips about dealing with the HOA and shared his family's experiences, careful not to deter them, but to prepare them. It's a great place to live, and things are improving every day, he said warmly. As he watched the family leave, Marcus felt a sense of hope for the neighborhood's future. A month later, the Walkers hosted a block party, inviting everyone in the community. Camille coordinated the food and decorations. Jasmine set up a photo booth with her camera, and Marcus manned the grill. The turnout was impressive, with neighbors of all backgrounds mingling, laughing, and enjoying the event. Even Barbara, who rarely attended social gatherings, joined in, bringing her famous potato salad. As the sun set and string lights illuminated the street, Marcus raised a glass of lemonade to address the crowd. When we moved here, we faced some challenges, he began, his voice carrying across the gathered neighbors. But we also found strength, resilience, and, most importantly, community. Thank you all for making this neighborhood a place we're proud to call home. The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time since their arrival, the Walkers felt truly embraced. Karen's house sold quickly to David and Priya, who moved in with their children. The Walkers greeted them with a warm welcome, offering advice and support as they settled in. The neighborhood began to change, becoming more inclusive and vibrant. Marcus and Camille watched with pride as Jasmine befriended the new kids, her laughter echoing in the cul-de-sac. Though their journey had been fraught with challenges, the Walkers had turned their adversity into an opportunity to transform their community, and their perseverance had made all the difference. The block party ended with music, dancing, and the hum of conversation, a testament to the power of resilience and unity. The Walkers had not only survived Karen's hostility, but had thrived, creating a neighborhood that felt like home for everyone. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey of perseverance, justice, and community. The Walkers' story is a testament to the power of standing tall in the face of adversity and using courage to create change. Their resilience reminds us all that no matter how tough the challenge, unity and integrity can triumph. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss another story that inspires, challenges, and uplifts. Let us know where you're listening from, and join us next time for another unforgettable tale. Until then, stay hopeful, stay kind, and keep striving for a better world.